the same company where I got started. So they were paying teams 18 cents a mile. They put me on the hook for $6,000. They had a driver who didn't speak English. The guy said they stopped him. He was trying to get unstuck from my trailer. But one thing that held that lawsuit up was because they couldn't find the driver. Every time I have to let another truck in, like I'll get over to help a truck merge in or something, I'll lose that car behind me. Like they won't get over in the left lane with me. They just stay in the right lane and they get on their brakes, I guess, to let cars merge in. So I've lost them like 3, 4, 5 times maybe, and then they catch back up and they're right behind me again. But I've never seen them get in the left lane. I don't know if they might have some issue with their neck where they can't like turn and look at the mirrors. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I mean, I've seen a few cars kind of behave like, I mean, four-wheelers kind of behave like that before, but I'm not sure what it is. I was wondering, I just got back on the road within the past year. I mean, I started the authority back up in August, or I started the authority up in August, but I was kind of wondering if a new driver was to get started today, what the best trucking companies to start at would be. I mean, I wouldn't start at the same company where I got started. I started at BAM Transport. They had some good people there, but I think that's every company, you know. But they just had some real questionable policies that trickled down from the top, especially regarding like training. That's really where my holdup was. Well, and their pay. I mean, I think I was involved in 2 class actions with them, and I think. So one of the drivers I trained while I was there, I think there might have been a third, because I'm thinking he got 3 paychecks out of those, and I got 2, just based on the like date ranges we were there. So somebody had sued him for not paying the drivers fairly, and the class action won, or 2 class actions won. Or it could have been the same one, but they were based on separate date ranges. I'm not sure. I didn't pay attention to it. But it was bad enough to where you didn't have to, like I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to like fill out a form and sign up for it. They just mailed the checks to people. I mean, I know Swift has this reputation of Swift, but I've also talked to some Swift drivers that are not new drivers. They've been at Swift for quite a while, and they seem happy. Whenever so before I started at PAM, I was actually looking at Prime, and the only reason I didn't start with Prime was because they wanted me to go to Missouri for like training or trucking school, something like that, and PAM was set up, they used this C1, at that time, it's like C1 school in Fort Worth, so Fort Worth was closer to where I lived. Looking back, that was probably a bad decision. But I mean, even if I'd started with Prime, I don't think I'd still be there. But I feel like Prime is probably one of them that's you don't just hear negative stories about Prime. You hear some bad stories, which you do about every trucking company, but you also hear a lot of, you know, drivers that are happy at Prime. So I feel like that's probably a better place to start at. And they've got a more diversified fleet. Like Prime's got tankers, they've got some flatbed stuff, and obviously reefers. I don't know if Prime does any dry van work. I think they specialize in reefer. So Knight and Swift, they're all one big behemoth now. Western Express, I guess I think they started flatbed, and then they got both. You know, they do drive-in work too. Probably the smaller operations. And there used to be trucking schools where you could, like, community colleges would offer like CDL schools, so you could go to one of those and you wouldn't be associated with any company. Like when I started with Pam, they paid for my school. It was, I don't know how much they paid for it, but whatever it was probably too much. But I was they put me on the hook for $6,000. If I were to if I were to quit within a year, I was going to owe them $6,000 or a portion of $6,000. So I stayed for a year, or just barely over a year. Not too much after that was out the door. But a friend of mine, he works at Werner, and I think Werner's a starter company, and he's pretty happy at Werner. Now, he's not just running over the road. He's on a dedicated, like, contract. He does tractor supply loads for them, and they keep him around the house. Like, he gets through the house quite a bit. And he told me how much he made last year, and he made a lot more than I did. But so I think Werner would probably be, you know, and he's actually tried, you know, he tried some other stuff like local work. He's wanting to be at home more, so he tried a few other things, but he ended up going back to Werner. So it kind of makes me think Werner's not a half bad company. I mean, it depends if you're over the road. I mean, everybody's experience is different, you know. Your mileage will vary. But, and I think Werner's the one that has the Dollar General contracts. There's actually, I could do Dollar General's got a distribution center right up from my house. Or not, it's in Longview, but it's pretty close. It's within 15 or 20 minutes. But every time I look at those Dollar General trucks that are like docked or backed in, or I don't know if they use lift gates on all of them or some of them, but it looks like they've got to have a pretty good turning radius on those trucks. And I don't know that I could manage that with this truck. Or I'd have to have my fifth wheel slid up a little closer, I'd imagine. But another friend of mine, he's worked for Lone Star, part of the Daysky group. But then they were bought out. So Lone Star is a Texas-based company. I think Daysky might be too. They do a lot of windmill. They're one of the big windmill movers. I think Wiley is also in there. They all have red trucks, so you're not sure which one of them it is until you look at the letters on the side. But he was not real unhappy at Lone Star, and I think Lone Star trains you. Like, you start out flatbed, I think they train you. However, that was before they got bought out by the parent company that owns CFI. I think it's a Canadian-based company, but I think their parent company of CFI is TFI, maybe. But I'm actually involved in a lawsuit with CFI right now. I don't have any good things to say about CFI. They had a driver who didn't speak English, and I was at a rest area in Ohio near the Pennsylvania border, and it was one of them that they had showers in there, so I was in there taking a shower, and as soon as I got out of the shower, there was somebody like in the little lounge area waiting, and he asked me, he said, "Are you pulling the step deck with the stone?" I was hauling like stones or rocks. I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, there's a dry van trailer that's stuck on your trailer." And this was wide open, like nobody was parked there. This was just like a big empty rest area type thing, service plaza. And this CFI driver, somehow he managed to, he was just turning the truck like it was a four-wheeler, you know? It's like he didn't even have a trailer behind him. And he had, I didn't see it, but the guy said they stopped him. He was trying to get unstuck from my trailer. And they went over, like him and a couple other guys went over and stopped him and told him he needed to wait. Or if it wasn't for them, that guy might have been gone. I might have just got out there and, I mean, he had ripped the back end of my trailer off. Just rocking back and forth. Like his tires were a combination of tires and something else under the trailer were like, but we got him unstuck. And, but it did a lot of damage, and that was during like the pandemic stuff, so there was a shortage of materials and getting work done and everything. I ended up, my trailer was out of service for 90 days, and so I ended up having to pull a Landstar trailer just to fill in the gap there. Well, see, the reason I'm in a lawsuit with them is they paid for the trailer to get repaired, but they didn't pay for any of my downtime. I mean, I was down for, you know, 2 or 3 weeks probably before I got hooked up to a Landstar trailer while I was just figuring out if the trailer was even able to move, you know, legally in the state it was in, and where am I going to take it to get work done and everything like that. So they didn't cover any downtime at all. And they didn't cover anything for the trailer being out of service and me. Like if you're leased on somewhere, if you use your own trailer, you get paid a higher percentage of the load versus using a company-owned trailer. So they didn't do any compensation for that. I'm working with 2 different attorneys. The first group was a group out of Florida, and they had come up with an estimate of, I think it was around 24 grand that I lost in like value by just the whole thing, not including the trailer being repaired, just downtime cost. And it was in the, one thing they did factor into that was it was like prime time for flatbed season, because it was in the summer, and it was in 2022. So, I mean, it's like, that was a great market. And so they came up with 24 grand, and then they weren't able to do the legal filings and stuff. You have to do the lawsuit in the state where you're based, where that carrier's based, or where the where the event occurred. So they're filing everything in Ohio, and it's past the statute of limitations at this point. But since everything's already been filed, I think it's all. I mean, I haven't talked to them and talked to the attorneys in a while, but I think everything's still just papers getting shuffled around, or things are still moving forward at a very slow pace. And then, so one thing that held that lawsuit up was because they couldn't find the driver. And this is 3 years. This is over 3 years ago now. But they kept the CFI side. Their attorneys were able to stall things and hold things up because we couldn't locate the driver. And I told them, I'm not suing the driver. Like, I mean, I didn't tell them. I told my attorneys that. I said, I'm not trying to sue the driver. That guy's off in Vietnam or something. I don't know where he's at, but he's not in the USA anymore. But they were able to delay things for quite a while with that little tactic. And eventually they had to do like a formal search and like try to go through all this legal stuff to try to find the driver. They couldn't. And then I guess the court said, you don't need the driver. Like, it was like you hired him, he couldn't speak English, or he didn't speak English very well at all. Like, I could communicate with him, but it was very difficult. Yeah, that's going on, but I would say CFI, probably not a great starter company. Melton, this truck that just passed me right here, I think they're pretty good. I talked to a driver from Melton that he'd been there 26. I think he had over 2 million miles, and they had bought him a pretty nice truck, and he was able to like customize, like do a pretty nice headache rack, and he got to spec out his own truck, so he was obviously happy at Melton. So that would have been a good one. I think looking back, if I had it to do over again, that would have been a pretty good starter company. I'm not sure about Maverick, those like maroonish colored trucks. I think they're based out of Arkansas. I don't really know. I used to see trucks when I'd haul these electrical like cable reels with out of East Texas. Maverick had a bunch of trucks in there picking those same things up, and their drivers seem pretty competent. They seem like they knew what they were doing. I didn't talk to them about pay or anything, and I don't know what a fair driver, like company driver pay is. I'm assuming that like even the base rate's got to be above 50 cents a mile now. When I started, we were like teaming, so they were paying teams 18 cents a mile, but you were getting paid for your miles, and you were getting paid for the whole trucks, every mile the truck drove, including deadhead miles for the team. And right before I quit, they were increasing that rate. But on hazmat teams, I think it was up to like, so if you were just a team truck, it was 18 cents, and then a hazmat team, I think it was 24 cents a mile. So, you know, for you and your teammate. But I don't know. Let me know in the comments what a good rate per mile is for company drivers these days. I'm thinking it's got to be over 50 cents a mile, probably for just starting out, and then probably works its way up around 70 or 80 cents a mile for, you know, if you have experience, or just working at a different company. And I think to move up, to get a pay raise, to get paid more the quickest, like to work your way up the ladder the quickest, I think you just got to quit. I think you could jump ship and go to a different company and just, you know, negotiate a better rate per mile than you could wait for your company. Or, I mean, you could use it as leverage, you know, get an offer, negotiate it, and then use it as leverage. Just tell your company, if you're happy with them, you know, I got this offer at 75 cents a mile. I don't hate working here. I'd like to stay, but I got to do what's best for me and my family. You want to match it? Well, I never worked for another company after that. I just bought a truck and went to leased on with Landstar. Did that for 6 years. I had 2 trucks on with Landstar, and I drove another fleet owner's truck in between. Yeah, I was just curious where people are starting out. What's a good? I'm sure. I mean, there's there's thousands of trucking companies. Normally, the smaller the better. But who are some of the better starter companies out there these days? If you were a brand new driver. But y'all stay safe. I'll catch up with you next time.